Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today. And we're starting once again with Ghost of Yotei. We did get some new information from Sony yesterday on the official PlayStation page for Ghost of Yotei. But today we have a rumor coming from the individual known as Detective Seeds. This person is claiming that Ghost of Yotei is set to release around mid to late July. And they're saying here that for clarification, there are two people giving me this info. One who said mid to late August, but missed, and one said mid to late July, but has been spot on with their info. So this is something that, again, we want to take with a grain of salt. We're, always covering different rumors and leaks here for PlayStation. And, this is one that maybe it'll turn out to be true. I mean, honestly, it makes sense, right? The idea of Ghost of Yotei coming in mid to late July sounds like a good release date. I would say August also makes sense, but as we've continued to say ad nauseum here, Sony is absolutely going to avoid the blast radius of GTA 6, which is going to be a holiday 2025 game. So yeah, Ghost of Tsushima released in July of 2020, so I could absolutely see Ghost of Yotei also releasing in July, this time in 2025. But moving on to the next topic, we have another leak here regarding something Last of Us related. This is coming from Bill Kuhn of Dealabs, who's been spot on with pretty much everything. And they say here a new special PS5 edition for the Last of Us franchise is on the horizon. That's the way they worded it. But basically, he's saying that there's a new version of The Last of Us of some kind that's going to be releasing, and it's going to be priced at $120 US. Now, I think this is very obviously a bundle of The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2 remastered for PS5. The reason I say this is because The Last of Us Part 1 on PlayStation Direct is still being sold for $70. And The Last of Us Part 2 remaster is being sold for $50. So, you put them together in one package, sell it for $120. There you go. I'm not really sure what else it could be. I've seen people speculating, but yeah, this is just something, again, that's leaking out. I guess we'll have to just see what ends up being announced. I'm not sure why exactly they're doing this, but yeah, I guess it's going to be for anybody who wants to buy both in one package and doesn't want to buy them separately. But continuing to talk about The Last of Us, we have a report here from Push Square where apparently Neil Druckmann answers the question, was Joel right? It says Naughty Dog's groundbreaking The Last of Us franchise has posted a bunch of uncomfortable moral quandaries for players to grapple with. Perhaps the most profound of all is the decision made by protagonist Joel Miller at the end of the first game, and fans have debated its ramifications for over a decade now. Now, obviously, there's going to be spoilers here. Naughty Dog boss Neil Druckmann, who wrote the first game's confronting narrative, has definitively weighed in on the all-important question, was Joel right in sacrificing humanity's one potential chance at a cure for the virus to save Ellie from an operation that would almost certainly have killed her? IGN asked the cast of HBO's adaptation the same question, with a vast majority showing that they lack the decisiveness to survive in the harsh apocalypse depicted in The Last of Us, giving various waffling answers and various it's complicated answers. Druckmann made a more definitive, or had a more definitive answer, and he says, quote, Joel was right. If I were in Joel's position, I hope I would be able to do what he did to save my daughter, end quote. So I just thought that this was really interesting to cover because this is a question that people have been asking for over a decade regarding this game, like, was Joel right? And, it's a very divisive question, but considering Neil Druckmann did write the first game, it is interesting to have him weigh in here and say that, yeah, he believes Joel was right, and he would have tried to do the same thing. It's just kind of interesting to get that perspective there. And so, yeah, just wanted to kind of cover that. But we're moving on to the next topic, which talks about the Netflix president talking about the future of gaming and weighing in and basically insinuating that people, at least the younger generation, is not really interested in the PlayStation 6 and just giving us their perspective on this. So this is a quote from Netflix's president when asked a question about, the future of gaming. He says, when it comes to console, we started to look at the future where the platform is agnostic. Look at the younger generation. Are 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds dreaming of owning a PlayStation 6? I'm not sure. They are wanting to interact with any digital screen wherever it is, even in the car. With console, you're thinking about high definition. You're thinking about the controller. If we look at this older model, I think it will restrain us. That's the full quote from Netflix's president. And, I find it interesting because Netflix has not been very successful with their gaming division. And this is, I think, what we just kind of continue to hear. Like, this is nothing new, right? We've been hearing for generations that, eventually people are going to grow up and move away from the console, or the younger generations are just not going to be interested. But time and time again, it's proven to just be simply untrue. Both Nintendo and Sony have proven this and are still proving it right now. Now, I will admit that the PlayStation 6 is going to be very interesting for the fact that Sony is going to have to do, I think, a lot more this time around to sell it to a larger audience compared to the PS5 and the PS4. I think the PS5 really had a lot of momentum thanks to how successful the PS4 was. But I just think going into the PlayStation 6, things are going to be a little bit different. Again, I think Sony's going to have to do a lot more. Now, to be fair, the president of Netflix doesn't say definitively that, the younger generation, like 8 and 10-year-olds, are not dreaming of owning a PlayStation 6. He's just saying he's not sure. I do think, high-end premium console gaming, I think this is always going to have a place, even with the younger generation. I just think that, it is true that the younger generation, they are engaging with games and playing different games across all different screens, through apps, through different devices, and that's going to continue. But I don't think that's necessarily going to make it so that, the premium high-end console gaming experience, or just the console experience in general, is going to just end up disappearing or fading away. Could become more niche, but I don't know. It's just very interesting to get this perspective here. I wanted to share that with you. But moving on to the next topic, we have some not so great news for the PS5 and PS5 Pro, as there seems to be some kind of issue with VRR being reported by WCCF Tech. It says there's a stuttering issue in several PS5 and PS5 Pro games when enabling VRR and unlocked frame rate. The report comes from Digital Foundry, which investigated the issue across various games. They found out that after 20 to 30 minutes of playing one of these games, stuttering would occur roughly every 8 seconds, give or take a few frames here and there. So there were multiple games that were confirmed, like The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 Remastered, Hogwarts Legacy, Elden Ring, Resident Evil 4, Ratchet & Clank, Marvel Spider-Man, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Interestingly, the stuttering issue seemed to go away for a while after switching to another input and then back to PlayStation 5. Of course, that's not a proper fix. A proper fix can only come from Sony or the developers, depending on whether it's a system-wide issue or a game-specific issue. So, this is something that Digital Foundry did go out of their way to highlight, and I think it's a good thing, ultimately, just because if Sony and the developers are not aware of this, it's good that they be made aware of this, so that way they can actually do something about it and fix it. It seems like for a lot of people, they're not really noticing it, but there are also those who, if you're buying a premium console like the PS5 Pro and you're thinking about things like VRR and high frame rate mode, there's a chance you're going to notice this type of stuff. And I've seen a lot of people saying that, they want Sony or the developers to fix this, right, and correct it. So hopefully that's what will happen here. I'm sure that, considering Mark Cerny and Sony have been talking extensively to Digital Foundry about the PS5 Pro and their hardware, this is something they're being made aware of, and hopefully we'll do something about it. Moving on to the next topic here, we're talking briefly about Death Stranding. It was revealed that Death Stranding has officially surpassed 20 million players. And I think the timing of this announcement is not a coincidence. I think that a lot of people recently picked up Death Stranding for the first time to try it after seeing the latest trailer that was revealed and getting a release date for Death Stranding 2. It is worth noting that Death Stranding is currently available on all platforms, PS4, PS5, Xbox, PC, iOS, Amazon Luna. I mean, it's pretty much everywhere. And so I imagine that eventually down the road, the same thing will happen with Death Stranding 2, but we know it's going to launch first on PS5 and be exclusive for a certain amount of time. And so hopefully this is a good sign that, Death Stranding 2 will find more upfront success than Death Stranding 1. I do think Death Stranding 1 was ultimately a success, but it seemed like it was a bit of a slow burn over, a longer period of time. I wonder if Death Stranding 2 could end up being more front-loaded. We'll have to see about that. But guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.